Hello beautiful people, I'm Ifoma. Welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be making this beautiful shift dress with a knee gather. If this looks like what you're interested in, definitely watch till the end. Fabric I'll be using, this is an African print fabric. This also is an African print fabric I'll be using to put the design at the front. Okay, and this is a sweat bias. I don't know what you call this in your side, but in my area we call it sweat bias. You can buy it per yard. I think it's about 300 per yard depending on the market you went to. Okay, so I'm not going to be lining this. If you want to line in yours, can go ahead and get lining for yours. Then let's get started. I cut out two pieces of fabric like this and I folded them both into two places. Okay, so I cut out this fabric using my measurements. I used the cut off my measurement while it's on fold like this, so which means one full fabric like this is half of my measurement plus the allowances. Okay, you know that this gown is going to be a free gown, so if your hip is 38, you might want to use 40 inches to get here. Then you add either 1 or 2 inches allowance depending on the amount of allowance you add to your dress. Okay, so to cut the back, I just added 1 inch, 2 inches while it's open to get the zip allowance, and then I place the two fabrics like this. Okay, the front, the one that is going to serve as the front is on top, while the one that's going to serve at the back is on the down. Okay, I hope you understand this, but you can actually go on and cut it separately if that's what works better for you. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is to take the length of the gown. The length of the gown, if you take your full length, your short gown length, you're now going to minus the gather, the length of your gather from it. Okay, so my full length is 38 inches, but I'm going to use 32 inches to cut this gown, so I'm now use 6 inches as the gather. All right, so this depends on what you want it to be. If you want your normal, if you want your gather to be long, just minus whatever you're going to be using for your gather, minus it from your actual length. All right, so after that, the next thing I'm going to do is to take the neck depth. So it's going to be a high neck, so I'm going to be using 3.5. All right, let me just use 4 inches to cut this, or maybe let's stick with 3.5 because we are cutting directly on the fabric. After turning it, is going to get us to 4 inches. So I use 3.5 as the depth for the front, and I'm going to use 1 inch as the depth for the back. All right, and for the width, I'm going to be using 3 inches for the width of both the front and the back. All right, so this is what we are cutting for the back, and this is what we are cutting for the front. Okay, so next we are going to, from the front, from the center front, because you know this side that is out on the back part is the zipper allowance. All right, so whatever you are taking, you're going to be taking from the center front. So from the center front, I'm going to divide my shoulder measurement by 2, and then we'll mark on that point. I'm going to come down by 1 inch for our shoulder slope. Then we connect that to the tip of our neck width. So having gotten this, from there we are going to take our armhole measurement. Okay, so when we have gotten this, on that part we are going to take our bust line, divide it by 4, and whatever we have, we are going to add our allowance. Remember that this is a free dress, so I decided to add 1 inch allowance to it for the freeness, and then another 1 inch for the sewing allowance. Okay, so this is what I have. Let me connect the armhole line. All right, so this is what I have. Okay, so from my shoulder, I'm going to take my waist measurement. For the tip of my shoulder, my waist measurement is normally 19 or 18 inches or 18.5, depending on what I'm making, but this is a free gown, so I'm going to be using 18.5. On that waistline as well, we divide our waist measurement by 4, then add 1 inch for the freeness of the gown, then another 1 inch for our sewing allowance. Okay, so from that same shoulder, we're going to get our hip line. I normally use 27 inches or 28 depending on the kind of cloth I'm making, but for this case I'm going to be using 27 inches as my hip line. Okay, on that hip line I'm going to divide my hip measurement by 4, also add all the necessary allowances. All right, so now I'm just going to connect. Then you just connect straight to the length of your gown. Okay, so this is what we have. This is what we are going to go ahead now and cut out. All right, so here the next thing I'm going to do is to shape in our zip to eliminate zip bulge. Okay, this is our waistline, right? So on that our waistline I'm going to go inwards from the edge of our waistline by half of an inch. Okay, then I'm just going to connect that half of an inch to the beginning and also bring it down to the hip line like this. So we have like a little curve on the back part. Okay, so if you look closely here, you're going to see how I cut this. I cut out the front alone, and then the back I just cut out the back as well. So don't mistakenly cut the two neckline the same, because remember the front is going to be deeper than the back. So let's go ahead now and cut out our zip part. So this is what we have. At this point we are through with cutting this. We are just going to go ahead now and cut the sleeve. This is the gather that I cut out. Remember that I said my gather is going to be 6 inches long. So what I cut out here is 8 inches. I added my folding allowance. Okay, so this is going to be the gather that is going to be on the down part of this gown. All right, so now this gather, the length of the gather, I just cut out the length of an African fabric, which is normally 45. So I cut it out into 2. So this depends on how heavily gathered you want yours to be. If you want yours to be lightly gathered, you can go ahead and work with whatever fabric you want. All right, so at this point we are through with cutting. We're just going to go ahead now and start sewing. What we are going to do is to cut facing. Remember I said I'm not going to line this, so I'm going to quickly go ahead and cut facing. All right, we know how to cut facing. I just folded it into 2. This is the front facing, and I make sure that there is no cutting on the center part, because of course on the center part of the front there is no cutting. All right, I'm just going to place my front like this and just trace out. To our sewing machine, the first thing we want to do, especially if you are turning yours to a lining, is to place this design that is going to be at the front. Okay, so what I did was I used my iron to find this midpoint of this front part, and I also used my lining to find the midpoint of this design. All right, so this design is dependent on what you want. If you want it to be bigger or if you want it to be smaller than it is now. Okay, so let me just make this one a bit smaller. So this is what it is now. Okay, so I'm going to place this one. This is the center, right? And then this is the center of this one. Okay, so I don't know wherever you want it to be. Me, I'm just going to use, let's say, 7 inches. Yes, 7 inches to place mine. Okay, if you want yours to be down, if you want it to be up, this just depends on what you want. All right, so this is what I'm going to have here. And so to make the work easier for us, I'm going to hold this down with a hemming gum, right? So that once we sit down on our sewing machine, we're just going to go ahead and start sewing. So let me just use a hemming gum and hold this down. Right, so I just use the hemming gum to hold this down. You can also make use of a pin if you don't have a hemming gum. Okay, so when we have achieved this, we are now going to introduce this one. Okay, so we are going to introduce this one, place this one on top. Let me get some paint to place this one here and hold it down with a pin. Okay, so I think I need to say this. These sweat buyers do not accept iron. Once you press iron on top, it's going to turn shiny and it's going to spoil. iron spoils it, iron burns it. So don't ever iron directly on the surface like this. Okay, so having said that, I'm going to place this one as well. Hold it down with a pin. Make sure that the allowance you have here is the same thing with what we have here. Right, so I hope this does it for us. I hope this works. You can do this anyhow you want. You can make this side longer, you can make this side longer. Okay, so I'm just trying to get exactly what we are working with on the picture. So this is what we are going to go over to our sewing machine now and sew on both sides. Okay, we are going to be sewing on both sides of this suede, all round, everywhere this suede is. You're going to sew on the tip and on the tip here as well. So after sewing on the facing we cut, I interface this is optional if you want to interface yours. So after sewing, I'm just going to go ahead and turn the facing for the front and the back, and then we get back to the video. What we have after we are done sewing it down. Okay, so if you look closely, you can see that there are some foldings. This definitely needs ironing, but remember I said you cannot iron directly on this. So what you could do is you could place another piece of fabric on top like this and just press it like this. It's still going to work, see? Or you can turn to the wrong side of the fabric and press from that wrong side. Okay, it's still going to give you a good result. Just know that you are not supposed to press from the front of the suede, because pressing from this front of the suede spoils the suede. Just bear that in mind. So with that being said, I've also went ahead to turn the facing. I'm also going to iron the facing, hold it down with a hemming gun. If you look closely, you're going to see that I notched the neck. You are also going to notch your own neck. Okay, so I'm just going to iron everything, both the front and the back facing, and then you continue. What we are going to do after pressing is to join the shoulders. So this is how we are going to join the shoulder. Okay, we want to get a neat base at the shoulder, so we are going to join the shoulder like this. Okay, making sure that this joining between the facing and the actual shoulder, the two sides, both the front and the back, are aligning. Okay, so we can get a neat base after joining the shoulder. Okay, we're going to go ahead now and join the two shoulders. This is the sleeve, right? This is the wrong side of the sleeve. So what we're going to do is we're going to first of all fold the down part of the sleeve. Right, after folding, this is what it's going to look like, right? Then we are going to place this starting from the edge of the sleeve here. Okay, we are going to fold both sides, and we are going to make sure that this band is going to be at the center. All right, this is notch, this is the center, right? We are going to make sure that the band is going to be at the center. We are going to fold the two sides. Okay, then when we get to the edge, we are also going to fold the edge, but we will not close the edge because we are going to be passing rope through there. Okay, so we are going to sew straight this side, leaving the up and the down, but making sure that we have a neat finishing at the edge here. All right, so that's what we are going to do to the both sleeves. And after doing that, we are going to divide it into two. So we are going to make sure that you have at least, what I have here is 2.5 inches, so that after folding the two sides and dividing, you're still going to have enough channel for 2 ropes to pass. It looks like when we are done. All right, can you see? So remember I said you should not close here because this is the place you're going to pass your rope from. Okay, so you can decide to close here or not, but it's going to be important you don't close it because you're going to bring out your rope from there. Then when you're joining to the shoulder, everything is just going to close up. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead now and pass the rope that I prepared. Okay, I didn't use any length for this rope. You can make it as long or as short as you want. Just make sure it's longer than what you have here. All right, so let me just quickly pass it through the channels. All right, so this is what we have after we are done passing it, and I used a pin to hold here so that when we join it to the main fabric, it's just going to stay. Okay, so when you draw it, this is what you are going to have. All right, so I'm going to go ahead now and join this to our fabric. So this is what I have after I was done joining the sleeve. After I was done joining sleeve, I went ahead to shape. I also added my inner pocket, which is optional. You might not want to add yours. Okay, so what I have open now is my zipper side, which I'm going to close after I am done fixing the gather at the down part. So we're going to keep this aside and we're going to work on the gather. So this is the fabric I cut out for the gather. I went ahead to join it to have just one long fabric. Remember, it was 2 pieces of fabric. So here I'm just going to go ahead now and fold the down part. Remember, I added my folding allowance. Always endeavor you add your stitching allowances. So I am going to fold the down part. After folding the down part, I'm going to stitch a loose stitch. I'm going to sew a loose stitch on the up for the gather. We all know how to run gather. Just lose your machine to the last digit. It might be 5 or 4 depending on the machine you are using, and then you run a stitch on top here. Okay, if this is the down where you folded, you are going to run the stitch on the top area. So me, I like running 2 stitches. It helps me when I'm drawing the gather, in case if one cuts, so one is still going to be holding the gather. I'm going to go ahead now and prepare this gather. Then when we get back, we are going to join this to our actual dress. So this is what I have. I'm going to go ahead now and draw the gather. So you draw the gather by using 2. If you run a 2 stitch like me, you're going to use 2 top stitch, or maybe 2 down of the rope. As you can see, this is the upper ones, this is the down one. Don't use one of the upper one and one of the down one. It's not going to draw. Okay, so when you have picked up the 2 like, you're just going to draw your fabric. What we have after we are through gathering all the fabric, so I'm going to place this on my dress. This is my dress, right? This is the center of my dress. Let me notch the center here. You want to make sure that the gather is evenly spread. Okay, so this is the center of this. This is the place I joined. In case if yours do not have any joining, mark the center before you draw your gather. It's going to be easier for you that way. Okay, so this is the center. I'm just going to make sure that the 2 centers are corresponding while I release the gather a bit and join, just to make sure that the gather is evenly spread. Okay, so I'm just going to go over to my sewing machine and do that. Like I said, make sure that the center of your gather is aligning with the center of your actual fabric. Then you lose your gather if you dragged it very, very closely like mine. Just losing it a bit while you sew it on your dress. Okay, so I'm just going to go over to my sewing machine now and join the gather. So this is what we have after we are done. So you're going to go ahead here. I've removed mine. You're going to go ahead and remove every visible thread that you used to run the loose stitches. Okay, so I also went ahead to put the zipper, and then we are through with this cloth. Right, so that is it. So this is what we have as the finished product. Thank you very much for watching. Please hit the subscribe button and also turn on your notification bell. Also give this video a thumbs up. Thank you and bye.